I want to preface my comments by saying what I'm about to say isn't for everyone. So let me just start with that. Because when it comes to manifesting a specific person or anything, people think that doing a technique is the way to go, where doing nothing and just letting it happen is the way to go. And it very well may be. But what if I told you that some of you may be holding yourself back by overthinking with all of that? What if I told you that you don't need to do any technique or you don't need to wait at all? What if I told you the exact opposite of what coaches teach you in the manifestation community? What if I told you by persisting and taking action will actually help you get your specific person back? Also, what if I told you by making the first move will allow you to get your specific person back faster potentially? It's so simple, yet it's right under our noses, and almost no one seems to do it. The thing is, from working with people and listening to other people's stories that I've had nothing to do with, something that I realized is a lot of you, or some of you, are still very much in contact with your specific person. And things didn't end as bad as other situations did with other people who are dealing with their SP. But even if it did end bad, I mean, technically, that doesn't mean anything for you guys that follow this stuff, understand and know that circumstances don't matter. Whatever happened in the past doesn't matter. It's about what's going on now in the present moment. So my question to some of you is if that's the case, what's stopping you from reaching out to your specific person and checking on them or simply just staying in contact with them? Now, don't get me wrong, I do believe this is a nuanced conversation. It's not as easy and it's not one size fits all as I have religiously stated in my videos in the past for anybody that has been following this journey with me. I continuously state that. But like I said, listening and reading certain situations and working with people, sometimes getting your specific person back is as easy as just simply just reaching out. No fear, no anxiety, no nothing, especially if you're in contact with them. Now, I can understand if you haven't been in contact with your specific person for however many months or years or whatever the case may be. That's different. I get that. You haven't been in contact. You don't know where they're at in life. You don't know what's going on. I get that. But even with that situation or scenario, that might be even better potentially. It might be an even better idea for you to reach out potentially if months or years have gone by because as time passes, time heals all. And in a lot of cases, what bothered somebody 5, 10 years ago is no longer going to bother them in the present moment. And so I actually, once again, what's stopping you from reaching out? Maybe you're delaying your manifestation with your specific person because you aren't making the first move. You're doing all of this work to get into alignment. You're doing all this work to work on yourself. And don't get me wrong, that stuff is extremely important. It's extremely important to work on your self concept so that when your person does come back, you can maintain them and you can keep them, you can keep that relationship. Because what a lot of people do is a lot of people, they don't work on themselves and they're being taught and told that they don't have to work on themselves. And so what inevitably ends up happening is that people get back with somebody or they find somebody new and the relationship fails again. And that's because people don't realize that, as you guys know that have been following us for quite some time, it starts with you. There's no one to change but self, right? Don't ask to change your husband. Don't ask to change your boyfriend. Don't ask to change your wife. Don't ask to change your girlfriend. Don't ask to change your parents. It's not about changing them. You change. You change. And the consequence of you changing, your outer world is going to change. Their behavior will start to change. It's never about anybody else. It's always about you. If you guys can remember that and just drill that into your brain. So while you guys drill that in your head, I want you to look at your own situation in particular and ask yourself, am I in a situation where all I should really be doing is just simply reaching out to my person? Does my situation call for that? Can I just go ahead and send that text? Can I just go ahead and send that email or call or write that letter? Sometimes it really is just this easy. And I think back before I even knew about manifestation and dealing with a specific person, I remember a time where I had a breakup happen, and then a couple of months went by, and then I was the one that reached back out after a couple of months it went by, and that rekindled everything, and everything was good, and we got back together. So, and this is before I knew about manifestation, and so I think about things like that, and I understand how we get caught up, like I said, in the manifesting principles, and we think, no, I'm not going to do anything. I'm going to just let the universe do it on its time. But sometimes that can make things take longer instead of you just simply taking the action. So, what really is stopping you? Is it rejection? Are a lot of you afraid of rejection? Which, understandably so, by the way. I can totally understand that. But let me tell you about rejection because I have a great story that popped into my head just now talking about rejection and when it comes to manifesting a specific person and how you can look at this story and maybe apply it to your own or maybe consider, you know what, I am going to take that action instead of just being passive and waiting, et cetera, et cetera. Because I want all of you guys to understand something. Getting into alignment and everything is okay. And I guess waiting for divine timing or whatever the case may be, however you want to word it, that stuff does work, right? But for a lot of us, taking action is simply what we're going to have to do. So before I get into this story about, I'm getting ready to get into a story about how this real estate investor that's famous that I've been following for years, how he manifested his wife. But before I get into that story, I'm gonna just set the table by saying action is necessary for most of us. Most of us doing this law of attraction, law of assumption stuff. Action is necessary. You're gonna have to take some form of action in order to get to where you want, which is why I'm making this video because some of you might have to take action with your specific person situation. If you don't know that, then that's fine. That's where working with somebody like me or whoever you work with may come in handy because maybe I can guide you and tell you, you know what, now is a good time to send this letter, to write this message, to call this person, to send them this, whatever you wanted to send them, whatever the case may be, right? But some form of action for many of us, if not all of us that do this stuff, we are going to need to take that path because most of us, we have to realize that when we ask for things, the universe is going to provide us with the tools. If we are paying attention, it's going to give us the inspiration on what action to take. So you might get the action, the universe might provide you with the action to get in contact with your person to make that first move. Just like, for instance, with me, the universe showed me, and when I thought and I sat and I meditated a few years ago, and I'm like, what do I want to do? What do I really want to do? And then I figured out I want to do my YouTube channel. So the YouTube channel isn't going to just come to me without me doing anything. I have to actually set up the YouTube channel. I got the inspiration to start making videos a couple of years ago, right? The videos aren't going to make themselves. So I had to, once I got the inspiration to make the videos, I had to take action to get in front of the camera. I had to take the action to learn how YouTube works. I had to take action and learn how to recently over the summer edit videos and to get better. I had to learn how to do all of that or have an editor reach out to me. I had to take action to do all of that. It wasn't going to come to me once I had this idea to do YouTube videos. I wasn't going to just wait for a camera guy to come. I wasn't going to just wait for somebody to want to help me as much as I want to help myself. Other people can't want it more than you want it. So yeah, I could have sat back and waited and said, "Oh, I'm going to wait for the right time to start doing YouTube." No, I just did it. I took action. Even your beloved Neville Goddard took action. When Neville decided to start writing books and giving lectures, he had to take action, did he not? He had to drive and show up to whatever event or place where he was speaking. He had to prepare his speeches, however, he did that. He had to figure out how he was going to write his books, who was going to publish them, however, he did that. I mean, action is a pivotal part of the manifesting process, inspired action. However, each individual does that. It is a part of the process, and it is this way for anybody who does anything in life. Your favorite entertainer, your favorite singer, your favorite comedian, favorite actor, favorite athlete. These guys don't sit here and say, "Oh yeah, I hope one day to be the biggest athlete in the world or the best soccer player, the best basketball player, or the biggest singer, the best comedian." No, they actually have to go out and do the work. So the right work and the right action is required. The right inspired work and inspired action is required. Jim Carrey actually spoke about this, the actor, the comedian. He actually spoke about this, as some of you may have heard his story about how he manifested making $10 million. So in the early 90s or the mid 90s, I forget which one it was, he wrote himself a check for $10 million and he wrote it out to acting services rendered. And he gave himself, I don't remember, 3 or 5 years to make that kind of money because he had never made that kind of money before. And he made a joke when he was telling the story. He was like, "Yeah, I wrote myself a check, and I would go to the top of, I forget, someplace in California, Mulhaven Drive, or something like that." And he would visualize and do things like that. But he also said, I didn't just write the check and then, go eat a sandwich. He said I actually had to, do stuff and take some action, put some work in. But just before the deadline of the check that he wrote, which was 3 or 5 years, he got called for a role to make $10 million. And I don't remember what movie it was for. It was Dumb and Dumber or maybe The Mask. It was a big time movie though that, did very well. And so he manifested that $10 million check in a period of 3 to 5 years. He gave himself that time frame. But like Jim Carrey said, you can't just do that and go do nothing. I mean, some people can, as you guys know, I've stated, some people can do that and get away with it, but a lot of people really can't. A lot of people are going to have to, when that inspired action comes, take it. So, with that being said, look at your specific person situation and think, damn, maybe instead of getting into alignment and doing affirmations and doing all this stuff, maybe I just need to take action and reach out to them. But with that being said, let me get into the story of how this real estate investor that goes by the name of Grant Cardone, some of you guys may know him, is extremely famous in the country, one of the biggest real estate investors in the country, if not the world. I believe he's a billionaire now. The story of how he manifested his wife is very interesting because it took him a little over a year. I don't remember exactly how long, but so long story short, this guy Grant Cardone. And what made me think of this story is because for those of you that don't know, I'm also in real estate. I've been in real estate for the past decade, and so I know this guy Grant Cardone. But so long story short, this guy Grant Cardone met his wife, I believe, doing a commercial, and he wanted to obviously go on a date with her, and she turned him down. And so I also think I believe he hooked up with one of her friends in this during this time period, and because she didn't want him. And so for the next 13 months, I believe it was 13 months, he called her twice a month. Think about this. Now, again, I know this goes against the law of attraction, law of assumption principles, because the law of attraction, law of assumption principles tell you don't have to do anything. You don't have to lift a finger. And that is true. Again, like I said, you got to look at your own situation in particular and ask yourself, does this apply to me or not? So this guy, Grant Cardone, asked his wife, who he didn't know at the time, on a date. She rejected him, and for 13 months, I believe it was, he called her twice a month. Every 2 weeks, I think it was. Every 2 weeks, he would call and leave a message, and she would not reply and not respond. And then one day, eventually, I don't remember exactly how it happened because off the top of my head, I don't. I'm sure you could probably go on YouTube and watch the story. His wife's on YouTube telling the story. I know he's on YouTube telling the story on different podcasts or on his own YouTube channel or whatever. But bottom line is he followed up with her religiously every month, twice a month, and that 13th month or so, finally he was able to go on a date with her. And from there, everything else is written in history books. And now, years later, they're still married. They're still together. Both of them are thriving, being billionaires, living that life. And I tell you that story to say Grant used his real estate tactics, his real estate sales tactics, which I know a lot about because I've been in the business for the past decade. He used his follow up system on her in order to win her back. And that shows you guys, I want you guys to really understand and really digest what I'm saying. Here is somebody who knew nothing about law of attraction, law of assumption. Well, I can't say didn't know anything. Maybe he did. But here is somebody who he said, you know what? I'm not going to wait. I'm going to actually take action consistently because I like this woman and I want her to be mine. I want her to be all for me. She is mine. And see what most people do is when they take action and they get rejected a couple of times, they stop. I know this because like again, being in the real estate business, people hate rejection. But see something about me is I got very used to rejection being in the real estate business. I got very used to hearing the word no and dealing with sellers. So the word no doesn't bother Marv. I'm not worried by the word no. I don't care. It doesn't phase me. Whether a woman tells me no, whether a seller tells me no, anybody can tell me no. I'm like, okay. But see, for some reason, humans we have this fear of rejection, hearing no. And I get it. I get it. But when you constantly are told no, when you're constantly in the trenches, that fear goes away. You don't have those fears. When you live a certain life and you go through things in your life, there are certain fears that dissipate when you live a certain life where you're constantly in front of those things. Those fears go away. So the fear of rejection, Grant didn't have that fear of rejection like a lot of you have watching this video, have the fear of rejection when it comes to your specific person. Imagine calling somebody twice a month for 13 months and they tell you no every time and you don't give up. That's resiliency. That's how you have to attack life. That's how you win. That's how we win over here on this side. Everybody else can stay on that side. And so I take my hat off to Grant. And I want you guys to apply this to your life if you find it applicable. Because that's how you got to attack all areas of your life. If somebody tells you no, thank them. Because every no you get gets you one step closer to that yes. Don't ever forget that. Every no you get gets you one step closer to that one big yes that you have been waiting for. And that is a fact. So I personally don't care how many times your SP has rejected you. Because every rejection you get with an SP is bringing you one step closer to them ultimately saying yes, or someone even 100 times better than them telling you yes. So either way, you win. Either way, you will win. Don't ever forget this. You cannot lose. You cannot lose because in the end, you will get what you want or something better under grace in a perfect way.